Anthony Volpe was formerly CMO at Talkify and was CMO for 3 years at Anastasia Date, leading a team of 40. I took the company from $110 million in 2012 to $170 million revenue in 2015. He's also worked with Travelocity and eBay and Intel. And today we have a presentation from Anthony on creative marketing as a case study and a success story that Anthony's kindly sharing with us. So Anthony, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. It's great to meet everybody. Thank you so much. I'm currently the Chief Marketing Officer at Chief ROI, which is a fractional CMO brand and marketing service agency. So I'd like you to imagine yourself. You're either the CEO of a company or you're the CMO, head of marketing, somebody who's responsible for marketing activities, and you've got some brands. The brand strengths for your brands are, number one, that it's growing revenue. It's very profitable. You've got extremely strong digital marketing skills, and the digital marketing is going so well that you can consider yourself to have a solid acquisition machine. However, you've got some brand challenges. The retention is lower than you'd hoped. It's difficult to get good PR, if you can get any PR. And your audience characteristics are such that perhaps they don't really like to talk about your service very much. So that's the situation that I had when I was CMO at Anastasia Date and Asian Date. And so what I think any of us would think about in that particular situation is that the marketing objectives you would have is to build brand reputation. And you would try to do that by adding credibility of, for your audience of participating with the services. And you'd want to have the audiences feel trust and comfort. And you'd want to build PR as a viable channel. So the sites again in the brands were Anastasia Date and Asian Date. This is back in the 2012 to 2015 timeframe. And I was leading these, as I said, were going very successfully in some areas. And then in some areas, we had some challenges that I elucidated. And I realized we really needed to change our thinking. We had made some forays into PR. They had been somewhat hit and miss. But I realized we really needed to take a radical turn and figure out a way that we could make that channel work for us. So the new strategy that I outlined was sixfold. I wanted to associate our brands within a category that was followed, loved by our audience. And in this case, I'm talking about the male members of our audience. Our female audience marketing was going fine, but we're talking specifically about the male audience. And this is why I talked earlier about they didn't really want to talk about our services, which is dating. So I said we should associate our brands within a category loved by our audience. And within that category, I suggested that we needed to sponsor a premier event within it. And that could become the backdrop for any kind of stories that could be written about us. So instead of making us the sole subject or topic of any kind of PR, I wanted to, if you will, embed us within a larger story that had a lot of, I don't know if I want to say drama because that has a lot of negative connotation, but the idea is that it would be some signature event that had a lot of fanfare around it. And within that event, or you could even call it a spectacle, I wanted to create interesting storylines around aspects of us that could draw media partners in and readers in. And I wanted to do that so that we had something that wasn't just centered around the event, the time of the event itself, but something that we could have starting from about 6 months prior. And another part of the strategy was to try to find these targeted media and make it fun and interesting for them to become involved with us in that event and those stories so that they would really be immersed in the whole mix of that event as well as our brands. And with that strategy came the idea that we wanted to provide professional content and provide that freely to our media partners that agreed to cover us in the context of the event. And this is professional content that we made available starting from about 6 months prior and based on these different storylines. And I'll talk to you what I mean further, what I mean in terms of what storylines were. And then this sponsorship should really act as the hub for a fully integrated campaign. And I'll talk again shortly about what those other aspects are. So we did an investigation, and what we centered around was choosing the category of racing/rally cars. The reason is that the audience is 90+% men, and the majority of those men are upper middle class professionals who are the target audience for the brands that I was handling. The event and the basically the brand that we centered on is called Gumball 3000. So if you haven't heard of the Gumball 3000 rally, it's an annual rally. And what I mean by rally is that cars go from city to city or place to place. And in this case, it's a prestigious international car rally. It's world renowned, very famous. It happens on an annual basis. It's comprised of approximately 120 cars, people from all over the world, 55 plus countries, 300 participants. And it cost, at least about 10 years ago, the entry fee was $70,000 for one car and two people. So this is open to anybody who can pay, but they also have to have a fantastically nice car. And typically the kinds of cars that are used in this rally are Lamborghinis, Porsches, Ferraris, McLarens, and so on. The rally typically lasts 8 days, and it lasts across multiple countries. Every year, the route is different. There's really good global media exposure, millions of fans around the world. And again, it's well known within our target audience. And you could almost consider this a lifestyle brand. It's raucous, it's glamorous, it's upscale, it's fun. There's a lot of excitement and fanfare around Gumball Rally. Here's a picture in 2014 when the first year of our sponsor. More than 100,000 people lined the area where all of the cars came in at the end. And you can see how people are straining to take photos, and it's a big fanfare event. Here's a montage of photos in different areas. You can see the kinds of cars that are driven, the kinds of crowds that are drawn. And during the time of the event, not only is it a in real life event that has all this excitement, but also online as well, because there are a ton of influencers covering this and media properties. In 2015, the second year that I did this, the start of the rally was over in Stockholm in Sweden. First day we went to Oslo. The next day we went to Copenhagen. And then the next day we drove all the way through Germany on the Autobahn to Amsterdam. And at which time they put all of the cars on a very huge cargo jet and flew them over to Reno. And all of the participants went on a separate jumbo jet and met that plane in Reno. And then we drove from Reno to San Francisco the next day down to Los Angeles, and then Las Vegas, the final day where we were for a few days. Now, you may think, well, what's so exciting about, driving the cars? Well, the thing is that even during the rally itself, in between start point and the end points, there's a lot of events that they have. For example, they took us to a raceway where we got to drive race cars. And again, the starting cities, the ending cities, there's a lot of fanfare. And you can't really understand how popular it was in Europe. Going from Stockholm to Oslo, the whole highway there, which was a few hours drive, was lined with people on the side of the freeways, sitting in lawn chairs and screaming and having flags and so on. So and then every night there are huge VIP, very, very fancy parties where everybody gets dressed up. So you could almost think about it as kind of a carnival meets high-end VIP shishi lifestyle. Somebody had kind of coined the idea that it's kind of like being a rock star for a week. So this integrated program that we put together, I mentioned obviously that Gumball 3000 sponsorship is the center or the hub, and you can see all the aspects of the program that I included to, if you want to call it, they were like tentacles. Every tentacle or every spoke, maybe that's a better word, spoke of around this hub allowed us to extend the program and make it more, have more storylines, as well as have more ways in which media was interested, and also in which we were able to get out the content and the messaging. And one thing I should note here is that we had a professional film and video crew, as well as a logistics firm to help us do all of this. So you see this parentheses. What that means is these were the storylines, basically. Besides Gumball 3000, we had uniformed rally girls. I'll talk about all of these in a minute. We had success story couples on the rally, and number contest, where we had somebody who we basically went out to our members and said, hey, we're going to have this contest, and if you win this contest, you can actually come on the rally, all expenses paid. And we had there was a charity auction by Christie's on the rally one of the nights, and we donated a very popular car for that. I could talk about that. And then we had our cars themselves. We had a couple of entrant cars into the rally. And then lastly, down here, flight suits. We made flight suits for everybody with our branding on them who were going on that, what we call Gumball Air, from Amsterdam to Reno. And you can see the rest of the bubbles here show where we got all of that content out. Social media. I'll talk about content syndication in a second. Obviously, the sponsorship itself, co-marketing, email. Specifically, what content syndication means is, again, we took all of the content, the videos, photos, everything, and we provided it freely to our media partners. And they use that because media is really just, they're looking for stories. And when you provide interesting storylines for them, and then you provide the content, you make it very easy for them to put it on their social media channels and so on. And then the PR media ride-alongs, you can see, that refers to our offer to all of these media properties. We offer them a all expense paid trip to go with us for 8 days across Europe and across the US with us, chauffeured in one of our 13 SUVs, so that they could be with us during the whole time. That immersed them in Gumball 3000 as well as with our team. So they thought of themselves as the Anastasia Date and Asian Date team. That actually helped a lot because they sympathized with us, they related to us, and they thought of themselves as part of our team. So you can imagine how that helped to translate into good PR. We had drones. We had a lot of cameras on the cars, handheld and so on. We even had a helicopter. The cars themselves, these were two of the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro Z28s we had. I mentioned to you all of the fancy cars that were there. When everybody else zigged, we tried to zag, and that's why I wanted us to have cars that stood out. So these were American muscle cars, and part of the storyline around these was 6 months prior, we did a survey, which cars should, to our members and also to our media partners that they put out in their media, social media, which cars should we choose? We documented the buying process, the discovery process, the restoration process, the shipping them over to Sweden, and everything else. And I also adorned them with some official California personalized license plates, dating 1 and dating 2. So those are real plates. You can see here, this is a shot taken just behind our Asian Date car, the red car. You can see that on the top, it was adorned with our logo. So even in shots from above, I told you the drones and the helicopters, they caught that. Here in Stockholm, this is just at the very beginning of the rally, getting ready to leave, and we had over 100,000 people at the starting line. So lots of hoopla. We also, excuse me, we also had a discovery process where we went out to our female members and had a contest to see who would like to be one of our rally girls. And rally girls, by the way, that's not a pejorative in terms of using the word girls instead of women. That's just what women are called on these kinds of races and rallies. So these are our rally girls, 2 from Asian Date and 2 from Anastasia Date. And you can see behind the 2 cars. There were storylines everywhere on the rally. I've already mentioned a number of them, but even you can see on the left-hand side, one of our cars broke down. That turned into a story. That was something that got into a lot of media as well. These were the branded Gumball Air flight suits. There was a lot of branding on these, but this was a fun thing that we offered to all the participants, and they all wore those on this Gumball Air. Again, another thing that got us some media attention. For people in the, let's say, 50, 55 and older generation in the US, will probably be familiar with this car. It was called the Knight Rider, that was the name of the TV show, and this car was called Kit. We actually bought Kit, and this is the car that Gumball asked us to buy, and then we had it auctioned by Christie's, and this provided some nice brand shine because Christie's is obviously a very high-end brand, and it was good to be associated with these kinds of brands. So I mentioned quite a few times around the content. So this content, again, we provided this freely to our media partners. They put it out on their social media, so it wasn't just on ours. In this particular case, it was Gumball 3000, but quite a number of our partners took advantage of this. In this particular case, these were women models that we had as part of a pre-rally photo and video shoot, as well as this is also part of the same pre-rally video shoot. So like I said, starting from about 6 months prior, there was also a lot of content that we produced. So as part of the results, the PR results that we got, we were really quite happy, and they exceeded our expectations. There were 30 publications within our target list that provided articles. That's both from general press and automotive press. They comprised approximately 250 million unique visitors monthly. We got 66 articles and 232 social media posts, including many where they took our content and then added their own commentary. 100% were neutral or positive mentions of Anastasia Date and Asian Date. So nothing negative. So we were very happy with that. This just gives a screenshot of the 13 publications where we got general press. And then this next slide here shows the 17 publications where we were in automotive press. So again, these publications were targeted by us because they were a good fit with our target audience who were, excuse me, upper middle class professional males in the US. And we also got a cover story in a magazine called Response that was all about marketing, and they detailed over many pages how this program worked. And then the last slide here of substance is around the brand results. So our sponsorship of the rally was recognized by more than half of the male audience. And on various brand perception metrics, I don't want to get into all the details of that, but really we looked at those aware of our sponsorship versus those who are not aware. Basically, there was a 25% basis points lift. I shouldn't say percent, 25 basis points lift of those aware of our sponsorship. So they rated us 25 basis points higher on almost every brand perception metric versus those not aware. Attention, it was statistically significant. I don't want to get detailed on that, but because that's a little bit more difficult and a little bit more, I think, confidential. But essentially, we were pleased by the contribution of this program to the retention. So that is it. Are there any questions?
There we go. Sorry, I just needed to get back on.
I thought maybe I lost the entire audience.
No, don't worry. We all bailed on you. No, not at all. That was very good. And I've got a few questions for you. I've just been told not to press buttons. Arena told me not to press anything, so she's in charge of meat, soup to nuts today. So I've got a question for you. I'm not sure if you can answer it though, but I'm going to ask it anyway. This is from Nadia from Tandem Experiences. What was your ROI from this campaign? Perhaps you could hint at that.
Well, the ROI basically was what I showed you in terms of the all the metrics that I showed. Now, it was the way that we did that was not by customer acquisition or so on, but it was the number of metrics that I showed you that the
Right. Okay, I figured her question came before those. So
okay,
I just thought I'd
understood.
put it on the table. So another question from Mark Brooks, CEO Colin Brooks. Would you do this promo again?
I'm not answering anything from that guy.
Would you do this promo again, given similar challenges with another client, perhaps? And what key thing would you change?
I definitely would do this program again with a few different changes and caveats. Number one, the brands have to be substantially large enough to accommodate this kind of spend. All in, this program costs about $1.2 million. And so this is not for the faint of heart or for small brands. This is a very substantial expenditure. So there also has to be some kind of understanding that PR is never guaranteed, either in volume or in terms of its tonality. I would do it again, although there were some aspects of Gumball themselves as a business partner that would make me reticent to do it a third time. The first time was very good. The second time was that I mentioned here or was illustrating here was good, but there were some speed bumps, and I don't know if I would go back to them specifically, but I think the general idea, yes, would definitely do it again.
Great. And one final question, I guess, is how did you drum up the PR coverage? Walk us through that element, perhaps.
I had one PR agency employed for Anastasia Date and a different one for Asian Date. You may ask why. The reason was we wanted to see, generally speaking, what kind of different approaches they would have in terms of PR. We were learning at the time. I tasked both of them with trying to with a I guess a mandate or a request to find target publications that would match with this kind of audience demographic versus this event with a lot of input. So we came up with actually hundreds of publications. I had them reach out to the publications. We actually did a brief and we put together a whole presentation that the PR agencies gave when they reached out to these potential media partners, these target publications, and we showed them exactly what we would be offering them, exactly what would be happening in terms of the schedule, what we were hoping for from them in terms of messaging, what we would be offering in terms of the all expense paid trip, and so on. So it was a real marketing campaign in and of itself to try to get the target publications to agree to come with us.
Great. Well, Anthony, thank you very much for sharing today. It's been a fantastic presentation. I'm looking forward to showing that on OPW as well. So you can check out Anthony at chiefroi.com, which is basically a fractional CMO service. Also, welcome to the Cortland Brooks team. You're our newest Instant Advisory Board member. It's great having you on the team as well.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks, everybody.